Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Okay. Here we go. People finally. I thought I had missed out for a second. Hey, everyone. How's it going? It's your afternoon stream before the new Quickstep comes out. For anyone who it's their first time here, this is a thing I do in the hour before a Quickstep video comes out on Mondays. So, hello. How's it going? How's everyone's day? I am over caffeinated. I feel a little shaky, so I will be a little goofy today. I see Peter Coffin's in the chat. Hello. I'd recognize that news image from anywhere. And then after the stream comes out, or after the stream finishes at 2 o'clock, a new Quickstep comes out, and you guys can watch it. And then, once that is done, I am going to go to the library, and I'm going to do research. So, that's my plans. All right. So what I normally do in the stream, for anybody who is new, and this is their new thing, and this is like their first time in the stream, is that I answer some questions, talk about some stuff, chill. Oh, I just got told that I'm going to have Kelly collect my questions for me again, which is great. Yeah. Let me just fire that up. 1 second, friends. Okay. So, this week, what else is going to happen? This week, research finally closes on one of the bigger new Step Back videos, the one that'll come out at the end of June. And I'm going to start getting into writing the script for it, so I'm really excited for that. I also have a video that's coming out at the end of May that I'm gonna get some. I just wrote the outline for, so I'm gonna start writing the script sometime soon. Is that the one you've talked about that you're super stoked for? No, that is the one that's coming out at the end of July. This is the one that's coming out at the end of June. I've got a big transition to my channel that I am preparing for, where hopefully, starting with my video that comes out at the end of July, the hope is that I will have a video coming out on the last day of every month, and that each and every video I make will have a lot more of a production cycle, so that I have more time to focus on the details and sweat the small stuff, and let the videos have a lot higher quality and be a lot more interesting. So by the end of July, my videos will, on average, 1, have a month of research, 2, a month of writing, and 3, a month of editing and shooting. So that's the hope, is to get it all, to get it so that I have, at all times, 3 videos on the go in different stages of production. And I'm currently working on kind of expanding the production cycle outwards from that. So I'm going from producing a video about every 2 weeks to producing a video every month. And on top of that, kind of transitioning and not dropping a due date. And so my plan is, like, my end of May video is going to take more time than the previous ones. Then the end of June video, more time than that. And then by the time I get to July, 1 month. Am I going to continue Quickstep? Yes. You guys have shown overwhelming support for Quickstep. Quickstep has been shown to be a huge success. And there was a time last summer where I tried stopping it for a bit to focus on my history videos. But, through patronage, I was shown very quickly that was something that people did not want. So I brought it back after a couple months. What it will mean, hopefully, is that once this cycle is up in place, And once I've passed a certain finance threshold to the point where I'm doing this as my full-time job, then Quick Steps will hopefully be a little bit better, because I'll have a little bit more time to throw them together, because I'm not just like filming them in the morning on Wednesday and then bringing them to the office and editing them while the boss isn't looking and stuff like that. So I now have full communities of people in the audience who both say that they like my history video, and that they like my history videos and they like my quick step videos. And I have full like audiences of people who say that they like the quick step but hate the regular step back videos, and vice versa. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'm hoping that quick step will be something that I can put together in a few days, and that mainstream step back videos will be a little bit slower. It's kind of like, actually, since Peter Coffin's in the chat, it's very much like the cycle that he's in, and I would really like to hit something like that. So that's my current plan. And when I am a full-time YouTuber, which I'm, crossing fingers will be this year, that I can do some more time with quick steps too, because while they are necessary, I feel like I don't give them the elbow grease they deserve, and so I should probably, do some more, give them some more love. If you have kids, that cycle will murder you. Well, one step at a time. Okay. Any other meta stuff to talk about? I don't think so. I know this kind of stuff about scheduling and everything like that is very exhausting, or probably not interesting for the majority of you. You just want the content, but trust me, it is all in service for you guys. This cycle will get to a point where, my hope anyway, you guys will be getting better videos, higher quality. I want my main step back videos to be in like H-Bomber Guy, like Philosophy Tube, ContraPoints level of quality, and so I'm trying to make that jump with the limited resources I have. We're getting there. Okay, so what kind of questions have we got? So the IRS has finally recognized the Satanic Temple as a religion and given them tax-exempt status. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, we all know they're really atheists. I mean, tax exemption for religion is a little weird in the first place. I would think that, yeah, there definitely is a sort of, it's like, the kind of Satanists, the Church of Satan type people are like, they are basically atheists who like to cosplay as like devils and stuff like that. And why do churches have tax exemptions? Well, they didn't always, but one of the things that basically is the trade-off, the idea of the trade-off in American politics is that the church stays out of the state and the state stays out of the church. And so the church doesn't pay taxes, and they, in turn, don't get political. But we always know that that one side of that bargain's not being held up. And I think it's more of an America thing. I don't think that giving special status to churches and not like other community functional things, institutions, or, charities and stuff like that. Charities have some special status as well. So if you can justify that churches, play a function for their respective cultures, then you can make an argument. Although I would probably say that you're like fiddling around the edges for something that's obviously being exploited to make people money, like all those mega churches with like those millionaire preachers and stuff. But yeah, to me, like things about like tax code and stuff like that, I'm like not super really. I don't particularly care if the Church of Satan has tax exempt status. They're not. They're like a non-player really. Okay. So that was that question. Would you add a link or a thing we can do connected with Quickstep? Would you add a link or thing we can do connected with Quickstep? I'm not, you might want to rephrase that question. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. What topics do you plan on covering in the future? Well, Brianna, I can give you, do you guys want the list? I have a list of videos that, I intend on making over the next, actually, I have all the way until, November of 2020, but these are all very vague plans that could definitely change if I like something more, or if something is more likely to happen, or if I just find a more interesting story. But I have vague ideas. I don't know if you guys want those spoilers, but I mean, it's history, so it's not really a spoilers. But can give you the ones that are currently in production, because those ones are definitely going to happen. The other ones are much more subject to change. I have one, the one I have coming out at the end of the month is about Daganoweda and Hiawatha and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which is commonly known as the Iroquois Confederacy or the Six Nations, and how they were founded, how their constitution works, and how they can be part as like the annals of the development of democracy and things like that. That's coming out on May 31st. Then I have June 30th. I have an Ancient Aliens video coming out, which I have some really interesting. It'll be a discussion about ancient aliens, pseudo-archaeology, all sorts of fun stuff, and it's going to have extensive. As far as I know right now, it's going to be some. It's going to be some Thought Slime cameo. There's going to be some. It's going to be some Isaac Arthur cameo. There's going to be an actual archaeologist who debunks pseudo-archaeology. So that one's exciting. And then I have on July 27th for Gary Gygax Day, I'm doing a special video. Ken Feder. Yes, actually, Luke Lee. That is who I'm talking to. How do you know Ken Feder? Yeah, Ken Feder has agreed to do an interview for the video, so that'll be fun. Yeah, and so for the end of July, I'm making a D&D and history video, which is going to be about the Satanic Panic and the ideas of like ritual satanic sacrifice and all that like scary stuff that went down in the 80s. And I'm going to do a very D&D themed video, which I have one of the big things is that video is going to feature my entire D&D group, which means that Thought Slime's going to be in that one too. But then there's going to be, yes, there is, someone's mentioning Chick Tracts. There is going to be Chick Tracts mentioned in that video. But I can't like guarantee anything. This is why this is like very, all this is subject to change because it's all based on schedules and stuff like that. But I have talked to people who work at like Wizards of the Coast who make Dungeons and Dragons about trying to get some like high people in the D&D hierarchy who actually work on the game to do something for the video. So that's as far as I want to go publicly, but I am in talks with people with Wizards of the Coast email addresses for that video, which I'm pretty excited for. And talk about the Satanic Panic, which is something that we don't really give a lot of attention to. But I think, and I'm going to frame it like a D&D adventure. It's going to be good. After that, though, everything gets a lot more vague and a lot more loose because when I get, as I get more Patreon, hopefully, as I pass more Patreon thresholds, I'll have to add them to the schedule. And I have a handful of ideas for videos to go out until next year, but they are subject to change and having things added. Because at the moment, my plan is to make the second part of the Buddhism series on August 31st. I plan on releasing a video at the end of November about the Holodomor and about how the left needs to talk about the Soviet Union and how do we talk about Stalin. And I don't know too much about what I'm going to do with that one yet, but I do know that it's going to have, well, as far as I know, Donnie Gluckstein has agreed to come back to talk about that one. So if you remember Donnie Gluckstein from the Paris Commune video, he's planning on coming back for that. Then I want to do a video for Halloween. I don't know, a Halloween video. I got to work on whatever that's going to be. A video about Dinesh D'Souza and his historical claims. That's going to be in like for my birthday at the end of November. I want to make a what's it called? An Avengers Endgame parody to talk about it, where Dinesh D'Souza gets the Infinity Stones and he's trying to snap and erase half of all of history so that it all fits his narrative about how the past should work. When is your birthday? My birthday is on November 27th. And then because like this one just came up recently, I'm going to do one on the Armenian genocide because my wife knows a person who knows people who have connections with the Armenian community and with people who, well, they're not survivors of the Armenian genocide because it's over 100 years old, but like have some connections to it. And so I can talk about, can get probably some primo interviews about the Armenian genocide and about, that one probably be about genocide denial in general. And then, yeah, I've got a Ida B. Wells video for Black History Month, a Shirtwaist Fire and Strike video for Women's History Month, history of North Korea, Lost Cause, Hinduism, the trial of George W. Bush, Jainism video, another Halloween video, a video on Carlos II, the most inbred person in history, and about how they got to there and what we how do we talk about Carlos II. Pirates. I have a pirate theme video I want to make. And somebody asked me to make a video for Louis Riel at some point, so I'll probably make a Louis Riel video. I get a lot of requests to talk about Louis Riel, so and there's a Louis Riel day in February, so I might do that in 2021 or something. But that's what I got. That's my list at the moment. As I said, these are all subject to change, and they very likely will change over time. I change them all the time, so some of these might get delayed, some of these might get canceled or deleted. Like there used to be a Crusades video on that list, and then when I watched the video by Three Arrows, I deleted it because it's like Three Arrows made a Crusades video that's better than one that I could make, and covers everything I would have covered in a much better detail. So yeah, so I just got rid of it. Most inbred person, I'm strangely intrigued. Well, Brianna, not to spoil too much of video coming out in 2020, but late 2020. But Carlos II was the King of Spain briefly. He was a von Habsburg, but the von Habsburgs kept their dynasty large by marrying in family a lot of marrying nephew to or uncle to niece and things like that. And so there's a suspicion, or it's there's a lot of people who think, anyways, that Carlos II, who turned out to be extremely disabled because of extreme inbreeding, was the most genetically inbred human who ever lived, and he was barely able to function as a person. He died very young and basically broke the von Habsburg line in Spain. But the circumstances that led to his birth and the very tragic story about what happened to him, and also I have this whole idea about what genetic abuse is, and I kind of just want to I wanted to have a video about it, so it's sitting there. But yeah, that one I think is probably going to come out maybe in September of 2020. So, it's going to be a while. If Farage's new party splits the Conservatives, Labour would get in the next election. If Corbyn gets in the way, I worry he won't be able to get much done because he won't have a perceived mandate. I mean, parliamentary stuff aside, Jeremy Corbyn has a long wish list of things that he's wanted to do as prime minister that the Labour Party seems pretty lined up to. At least the Labour Party that's still around is lined up to do. Like, doesn't Jeremy Corbyn have a lot of plans to nationalize a bunch of things, improve things, have sort of a left Brexit? Like, I don't know. I'm not like super up to date on like British politics, but I know that like Jeremy Corbyn has a very long career in British politics, and he has a lot of things that he's wanted to do that Britain hasn't done. So I imagine he would do. That's a pretty good thing. I don't know. I think that the obvious popularity of those things, like the idea of like a perceived mandate, and I'm like kind of getting sick of this thing that comes up, because this comes up in the American context a lot too, where there's a lot of people who are not voting for their political interests because everyone seems to define themselves as a sort of everybody seems to think that they are a political strategist, and so that instead of voting for the policies that you want, everybody is voting for the policies that they think will like win in states that they have no idea how it works. Like they'll be like, well, you know, I like Sanders's policies. They're all good and they would all be extremely popular and well received. But I'm going to support Joe Biden because I don't know if Ohio is ready for a president who doesn't sniff women's hair. You know, like like the Democrats, the centrist Democrats use this sort of fake electability line to get people to not vote for the things that they want. And I feel like you should just vote for the things you want, because when it comes to the electorate, you are part of that. You are allowed to vote. You are allowed to want things and to vote for them. And you don't have to. No, everyone is not Nate Silver. Even Nate Silver isn't who Nate Silver thinks he is. Nate Silver is a right-wing Democrat who pretends that he knows how to predict elections. Either way. Yeah, let's just... Corbyn, Momentum's pushing for a second referendum. Well, that'd be good. I would prefer that for everybody involved in the UK. I would prefer a second referendum, and I would prefer that Brexit not happen. I would prefer Britain stay in the EU. It'd be better for the EU. It'd be better for Britain overall. And Jeremy Corbyn being prime minister in a UK that's in the EU, I think would be the best of all worlds for the UK. Also, what's your favorite color? We must know. It is most definitely purple. Purple. There we go. I like the color purple. Step Back's color scheme is purple. Purple was the school colors of both of the universities I went to. And on top of that, I used to really like green. I liked green when I was a younger lad. But I've started to like purple more as an adult. So that's my answer. I have coworkers who are like, I don't know too much about you, but I do know your favorite color is purple. And I'm like, this is true. All right. So Austro-Hungarian economist asks, where the Buddhism video dropping? I want a date, like a month or something. I think I mentioned this already, but I'll just reiterate. The Buddhism video, as it is currently scheduled, is to come out on August 31st. That could change, but that is the current date that it is penned in to be. I know I want to release it this summer because I promised in the Buddhism Part 1 video that I would release it this summer. So Buddhism Part 2 will come out at the end of August. Something drastic would have to happen for me to change that. Has anyone done a Marxist reading of D&D? No. Be fun, though. Hey, Tristan, what do you think about left-wing people and socialists who become authoritarian and fascist later in life? I think they call that red browning. The idea that because of their opposition to mainstream politics and because of the high amount of disaffected, unemployed people in both camps, that to some sections of socialist people, to some demographics of the socialist movement, that they are susceptible to the messaging of fascism. I do see this as a thing. You probably know, the kind of people who are on the socialist side of the spectrum who are prone to becoming fascists. You could because a lot of them end up in what's it called? A lot of them post on 8chan. So like Lefty Poll. Lefty Poll is like a prime place where you see quote unquote leftists who are very primed to become fascists. Tankies tend to fit in this as well. Like tankies are like authoritarian leftists who, like, I still get messages from tankies sometimes that are like, hey, like, why do you support like Western degeneracy, like homosexuality and transgender people, and like those kinds of people are the kinds of people that will wind up becoming fascists before the end. What I do think though, and so like Nazballs and stuff like that, which are basically just fascists, but their glorified, imagined past is the Soviet Union. But I do wonder, and I hope that there is room on that on the other side, that there are people in the alt-right and the kind of neo-fascist movement that are involved with it primarily because they are disaffected, because they are having trouble with finding a place in the world economically, and they have that they've just not heard any other messaging and they've not been convinced, and that you find that when you hear about success stories that a lot of like BreadTube people get like emails about how people got out of the alt-right, to show that, like, I think that there's also room for brown redding, if you will. But we shall see. But red browning is the term. It sounds like a bowel condition. Yeah, a little bit. But it is a thing. That's why, if you remember in my What is Fascism video, I talked about how Hitler was able to convince a bunch of people who self-styled themselves as a workers' party to become fascists. And there was a lot of fascists in Europe who were disaffected leftists who went down some sort of dark alleyway and became who they are. All right. I don't know if I answered your question, St. Augustine, but I would say if you're talking about like the kind of like right-leaning thing that happens as you get older, I actually push back against that. I think that's the thing that happens as you get economically comfortable, and I think that's a generational thing. I think that was a thing that boomers did, because I don't think millennials are going to get economically comfortable as they get older. It's going to be a struggle our whole lives. And so I don't imagine that we're going to have the same, like, oh, I became conservative as I got older thing. I don't think that that's a immutable law of politics or anything like that. That's just a thing the boomers did. And making it a law of politics is a thing they say to justify how they abandoned all of the causes that they believed in. Thoughts on the upcoming EU elections predict that the European far right will win between 25 and 35% of votes. Will you make a video about it? I really think that a European should make a video about that, because I'm not well versed in European, like, I don't know much about EU parliamentary politics. It's certainly scary. I am certainly not pleased about that, but I don't know enough to do anything except make an ass of myself. And also, all I could say is the far right is getting a lot of votes in EU elections. Don't. If you're thinking of voting for a far right EU candidate, you probably shouldn't. And you should probably talk your friends also into not voting for them. I don't know what more to say because I'm not really not a European, and I imagine the Europeans have a lot more to say about it. I imagine that a lot of Europeans are frustrated because your choices seem to be between like actual Nazis and people who seem to believe that Article 13 was a good idea. And I imagine that that's not a choice anyone will make or that anyone wants to make. That feels a lot like the election that happened in the US in 2016. So don't repeat that mistake. Eurocognition. Oh, we already answered that one. I don't get how the Haudenosaunee system would work without a writing system. Wouldn't people be constantly arguing about things like law and precedent if no written record? Well, their set of laws is I mean, they have a strong oral tradition. The Constitution, if you will, is codified in an oral story, and that like it's not like a strict legal precedent-based system. Like that is very much appealing to a certain legal system that is really only practiced in like English-speaking countries. Like the idea of appealing to precedent and that kind of thing is it's called the common law system, but like there's other systems like the Code Civil, which is like the French system. But on top of that, and there's like a bunch of traditional systems and things like that in different countries. It's why Canadian lawyers, the good Canadian lawyers, learn both systems because the court system in Quebec is completely different from the rest of the country because they follow a different legal basis for their legal code. But from what I know about the Haudenosaunee Confederacy is that, first of all, the different nations handle their own stuff for the most part. And then they meet semi-regularly to talk about larger things. But most of their collaboration and most of their law system is about maintaining peace and mutual protection. And they don't like, it's not like a court system, if you know what I mean. Are you ever going to cover the history of Syria like Sudan or Ethiopia? That'd be a good one. My current next country video is North Korea, which I think will do pretty well. But Syria definitely would be a good one, especially if we ever get to like, I don't know, we'll see where it goes. That could be one to do though. That'd be one that I think would be pretty good. I gotta see how this new system works, but you know, not a bad idea. It's probably better than some of the ones I had on my list. Like a pirates video, probably do better than that. Probably do better than Carlos II, maybe. But because those videos, those country summary videos, actually do pretty well. Do you think that the religious symbols banned in Quebec will be applied fairly, or do you think Sikhs and Muslims will be targeted way more than that of Christians with crucifix necklaces? Oh, definitely. The Quebec secularism law is a racist canard. It is designed specifically to attack Muslims. It is they know that this is not going to be enforced on anybody but like Sikhs who wear turbans and women who wear hijabs and niqabs. That is literally the only reason it exists. It is the latest of like several attempts from Quebec to make it illegal to wear a hijab in public. And this is just the latest attempt to do it by a new right-wing nationalist government in Quebec. So like, yeah, Quebec is so full of shit when they try to use secularism as like a very poor attempt to disguise an openly Islamophobic law, because like Quebec's Assemblée Nationale has a fucking crucifix on the wall. Like, this is not about secularism. It is about telling Muslims they're not welcome. And given that this is a country and Quebec is a province where there was a mass shooting at a mosque, like not even 3 years ago, like in January of 2017, that the fact that they're spending their energies trying to further crack down on Muslims shows that Quebec is in a really dark place that I really am not happy with. All right. Do paradigm shifts in social issues play a role, e.g., more visibility for liberation movements other than the working class? Sure. In some ways it's good, and in some ways it is intentionally used to obscure things. Like, I think we all remember about how every socialist was a secret misogynist, like 3 years ago. This time 3 years ago. I just saw a Twitter exchange where frickin' like a sandwich chain tried to imply that anybody who criticized social like brand personification on Twitter are misogynistic. Like, there's definitely a weaponization of some of these movements to shut down conversations. But I think that very much social issue movements, first of all, get people into activism. 2, are strong motivating factors for people to want to make positive change for themselves. And 3, are a really great way to get people to kind of step into a bigger movement. So I don't see any problem with it. I think identity politics is really good. It's just that there is a current, a centrist current that knows that they can convince people to get angry at leftist currents by just implying that there's something problematic about them. I mean, here's what's it called? The one right now, the sort of thing. Bernie Sanders is bad about black people. They don't explain why. They don't explain how. They don't explain anything about why Sanders is subtly racist, except that he doesn't poll well with black people because of, you could talk because there's no black Republicans, and so black people tend to vote Democrat no matter what their politics are, which means that black people in the Democratic Party as a whole are more right-wing than the average center of the Democratic Party. But no, it's interpreted as Sanders is bad, and you end up with white women on Twitter telling women of color that people of color don't support Bernie Sanders. It's like, ugh, it's gross. Where are we? Would you consider yourself a gender abolitionist? Not at the moment. Most of the gender abolitionist people these days are more of turfy type language. There's some turfy stuff out of that, but is gender a positive for society? I don't think anybody would say yes to that. Having prescribed roles for people based on what sex they were born in and what society attributes at birth to them is constraining, and probably something that, in a perfect society would not exist. But we don't live in a perfect society. We live in a society highly gendered and highly built upon gender. And most of the time, discussions about gender abolitionism is used more to attack trans people than it is to have any real discussion about gender theory and whatnot. But, Where does purple stand in the red browning and brown redding debate? Where does purple like the color? It's a good question. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking of a funny question. Funny answer. Funny answer. That's my answer. Will Voldemort Zelensky Voldemort. Will Voldemort Zelensky, the new president, actually change anything in Ukraine? I have no idea. I have no idea who he is. Don't know much about what's going on in Ukrainian politics. You assume too much about my knowledge of things. The point of my Corbyn question was, is it harder for a progressive politician if they only win because the Conservatives are infighting? No, I don't think so. Canada's had minority governments before, and minority governments result in more legislation that lasts than, like, majority governments. You'll be fine. Was part of the Independent Labour Party a centrist Marxist party? Okay. Orwell was part of an Independent Labour Party, a centrist Marxist party. What caused the Independent Labour to form and then collapse? No idea. Calls to action for quick steps. Examples is to tell of Lambda legal at the end of a gay rights video. If it's a Muslim video, say CARE exists and flash their website. Don't tell me it's bad. Give me a way to act. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. That's actually a pretty good idea. I can do something like that. Is there a good political movement / party in Quebec right now? I think there's been some discussion in the chat about Quebec Solidaire. It's probably the best choice you got. Could the global birth rate drop below replacement rate if living standards in the developing world were ever brought in line with those in the West and global North? Yeah, it could drop below a replacement. The problem with like discussions about that is like that's not super likely to happen soon. And on top of that, like people would probably have more children if they weren't super stressed out about the future. So plus it's like people's decisions. I don't see it as a bad thing. I don't know. What are Quebec Solidaire's policies? Well, all I know is that they're a little bit nationalist. They're still pro-separation because basically every party in Quebec that's not the Liberals are pro-separation. But like the CAQ, their idea is separation, but eventually, and we shouldn't be worrying about that right now. So they're a Quebec nationalist party, but they're left wing. They are very urban, very what's it called? They're fairly left wing. They have only a couple seats based out of Montreal. I mean, it'd be nice if they were a little bit more Anglophone friendly, but you know, it is what it is. Because like 20% of Quebec are Anglophones, and 3 of the 4 major political parties in Quebec are all kind of like fuck the Anglos. So, have you ever heard of the Vermont Republic, an unrecognized state sandwiched between the U.S. and Canada that lasted from 1777 until 1791 when it became the 14th U.S. state? Nope, that's a new one. There's a bit of those, too. There's like the Republic of West Florida that existed for a bit. There's, of course, the Texas Republic that people talk about sometimes. There was the California Republic. So, like, this happens from time to time. But they usually just, they seem to, like, start these republics with the idea that they would eventually become states. But I'm not exactly sure how that works. Was late, so apologies if it's been covered. Did you hear about the atheist community / Austin calling out atheist YouTubers' transphobic videos and predictable backlash from super logical atheists? No, but that sounds good. I like that. I think that is good on them. Yay. I can't say anything more than, like, you know, good on you. The French fought several revolutions to achieve a secular society free of religious authority, only to see it returning in the 21st century. What a positive way to defend it. What is a positive way to defend it? Separation of church and state is a pretty good one. Or, I think that like the idea, the French idea of secularism needs to be attenuated and realize that religion is religion is in different cultures has different levels of meaning for different people. Sometimes it is a more ancillary part of your culture. Like I would argue a lot of people in the West where it is not part of your core identity. It is not, at least for some people, especially in countries like France that have very secular culture. But then in some places that's not the case. And attacking religion and trying to ban symbols and ban worship and things like that are direct attacks on people's sense of identity. And that there are people who would, and have shown over the years, who would rather die than you take away their right to practice their faith. And by doing sort of anti-religious stuff and not embracing more of a like plurality and allowing people of different religions and different backgrounds to coexist, you are being exclusionary, and you are saying this is a society only for these people and no one else. And I think that was a Gad Uriv question, which, like, if a country that you happen to live in decided that it was going to no longer be, let's just say for the sake of argument, a Jewish ethno-state, and decided to be a, polyreligious, multicultural place where different religions and different backgrounds were able to coexist, and that nobody was entitled to anything, couldn't you see things getting a little better? Just a thought. I think in a perfect society, gender would exist, but we'd be down to choice. Do you disagree? Sure. Gender's, I don't know, because in some ways I'm just like, gender's a thing that is, it's, if you go with like the Judith Butler argument, the thing is like, all right, I'm like delving into some like, some very old, like back in like 2013 memories of being in gender theory courses. But if you were to go with like the Judith Butler definition of gender, which is gender is not something that you are, it's something you do. It's a set of behaviors and instructions that are imposed upon you by society based on what you've been assigned. And having those sets of expectations and performances creates categories which then, people feel like they associate more with one than the other. Leads to a lot of cultural dissonance. And I'm wondering if like just getting rid of like things that you're expected to do. Because like opening it up, yeah, that's perfect in the kind of context we're in. I don't know, if we're dealing purely theoretical about the role that the concept of gender plays in society, I don't know what it provides in any way that is positive, and that maybe we could evolve past that idea someday, but that is definitely a long, long, long way away. Because it's also culturally fluid. Like there are many cultures in North America or in India, for example, that have more than two genders. And in my mind, I think that the short-term solution would be to try and see if we can be more accepting of people who want to change their place in the binary or want to be beyond the binary before, we're moving towards like, why do we have binary genders in the first place? because that is something that will take some cultural deprogramming. That I don't know. I want people to just be whoever they feel like they want to be, and have nobody tell them what they should or shouldn't do. That's all. If you're not hurting anybody, just be yourself, whatever that is, and don't let anybody tell you what to do. Is that so hard? Okay. Where were we? Socialist, feminist, and ecologist leaders of lesbian. Oh yeah, this is about I think that's a Quebec Solidaire thing. Let's see, where are we? Is there any way to promote secularism in the West without becoming bigots? Yes, and that is instead is basically embracing pluralism instead of embracing like that religion is rejected. Just saying that the government's not going to take any stand when it comes to religion, but that people are free to practice whatever religion they want. That's it. And realize that the government's made of people and that people can have religions. And don't use secularism as a cudgel to justify your racist beliefs, which is what it's used for often in like in France and in Quebec and stuff. Where are we? Should I vote Labour in the EU elections? That sounds like a plan. Is there a Labour Party in the EU elections? Whatever is the good party in the EU elections, you should vote for them. I don't know how it works at all. Whoever Sargon of Akkad is running with, don't vote for them. Vote for the opposite of that. How excited are you for What We Left Behind, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the documentary? Ooh, yes, I have heard about that. So what that is, for anybody who isn't a Trekkie, Deep Space Nine this year turned 20. It's been 20 years since it ended. And What We Leave Behind was a documentary that had been a long time in production. That's going to be a documentary about Deep Space Nine, because people don't know too much about this kind of stuff outside of Star Trek fandom. But like in the Star Trek world, the non-Enterprise Star Trek shows are a little bit they're a little bit less loved. And there are some people out there though that really are like, Deep Space Nine was a great show, just as good as Next Generation, just as good as the original, just as good as anything else, and that we should really like that it is worthy of the same kind of nostalgia. And now there's a lot of people, because there was a big conception like in the late 90s, early 2000s that Voyager was a bad show, but a lot of people are kind of coming back to it as it's been on Netflix for a while, and now people are kind of revisiting the kind of cultural moment that people were so negative towards Voyager, and realizing that Voyager was probably actually better than we gave it credit for, which I'm all here for. But this is about What We Leave Behind, which is another attempt to be like Deep Space Nine for some people was a special show, and talking about how special it was, I think is a good thing. And they're making one second. They're making for the documentary. It got delayed by a few months because they decided to do an HD remaster of some of the scenes from the show for the documentary. And from what I recall, that's actually like really cool. That they look really, really pretty. And so overall, really good stuff. And so so Kelly and I, my wife, are watching are watching a bunch of TV shows, but one of the ones on our list is Deep Space Nine. because she hasn't seen it. And maybe when she and I finish our rewatch of the show, we stopped at around season 4 to watch some other things. When we get back to it, maybe we can maybe we'll watch the documentary after that, because yeah, ooh, that was a good sound. I don't know what that sound was. Must have gotten a new subscriber. I'm still figuring out all this Streamlabs stuff, so apologies on that. All right, we are quickly running out of time, so I gotta pick up the pace. Is Schadenfreude towards alt-right media failed appearances good? Does BreadTube actually help people, right-wingers like Ben Shapiro, by reposting his embarrassing BBC appearance? Maybe a little bit. I think it's definitely a good thing for the morale of the troops to see that Ben Shapiro, who has this huge, indomitable audience, actually has no credibility when he stands up to, like, anything. Like, the whole thing about the Ben Shapiro interview walkout thing is that even under the slightest amount of criticism, he lashed out, called a conservative BBC host a leftist, and walked out of the debate when the questions got too hard. And I think it shows, like, it's like an emperor has no clothes moment. Like, these people have audiences because of money and because of the reactionary wave that they're riding on. But I think that these public embarrassments actually do harm their clout, and given enough time, hopefully their media personalities will go down. So I honestly, I think that Ben Shapiro, who sells himself as this, like, uber intellectual, being publicly embarrassed for his lack of knowledge on television, the first time, like, at least one of the first times in a big way that he's been on television, is perfectly fine for me. How come Quebec and France are similar in secularism despite being wildly divergent for 350 years? Because they speak the same language, and so they, have a similar culture, watch the same movies, and have similar political currents because of it. It's fairly common. Just like how the English-speaking world has similar things happen. Hence why Trump getting elected in America leads to right-wing nationalists getting big in other English-speaking countries. It's pretty common. All right. I think I fell into a Futurama freeze tube and woke up in the post-gender world. I'd be annoyed by people telling me I can't be a man because men don't exist. Is wrong to feel that way. Well, I just think it would be more just people wouldn't tell you that, like, there wouldn't be a set of things that men do, or that the category of man does. My ideal post-gender society would just be that there is no set of behaviors that people are expected to do. You can wear what you want. You can do what you want. You could just be whoever you want to be. And I think that would just result in more diversity of humans, which would be... I don't know if you guys have picked up yet, but I really, really like diversity. I think that diversity is the strength of humanity and that we should embrace it, not try to get away. Won't HD remastering make the set look fake? No, I've seen some pictures from it. It looks really, really good. Like, really, really good. The HD remaster of some of the stills from Deep Space Nine, like, just awesome, like, beautiful looking things. But, people worry about that. But then because cheap sets with an HD remaster, but they managed to do it really well. Thoughts on Shoe on Head? I know she's a skeptic and engaged to Armored Skeptic, but I occasionally see some breadtubers being friendly with her. I did a Twitter thread about that was kind of vaguely about her this morning. Her and, like, Cult of Dusty, where I basically pointed out that, like, these are people who have spent years dehumanizing people, mocking people, trying to drum up hatred for groups of people that they didn't understand, and that they have literally profited off of making other people's lives worse, and that now, because neo-Nazis are coming back, in no small part because of the atmosphere these people have created of this anti-social justice, anti all forms of progress mentality, and scapegoating of Muslims and things like that, has resulted in rise in fascist hatred, and now all of a sudden they want to get out. I don't know. You'd have to do a lot of apologizing before I'm willing to be like friendly with you. I don't treat. There are some people who treat these arguments and these YouTube things as like some form of Cult of Dusty is on the left now for real, except that I Googled his YouTube channel today and he still has a video that says Muslims are R-word. So that video is still up. If he took that down and apologized for how he's treated Muslims, maybe, but it's still, I'm still not a fan. Yeah. Thoughts on Borat? It's funny. It's definitely problematic as shit, but I think that it pokes a lot of great things, especially in the moment when it came out. British conservatives are leftist by U.S. standards. Yeah, that's probably true. You said that you never let your cats outside. Do you worry that's kind of cruel? I mean, they're evolved to prowl around a large range, not one small apartment. Judging how cats do a lot of damage to the environment that they're in when they are let out, and on top of that, we live downtown in one of the largest cities in North America. There's nothing for them to do outside. There's no grass. There's no birds for them to chase except for like pigeons. And so like, and also there's a lot of cars. Like, yeah, no, cats are perfectly fine indoors. They are well taken care of. They are big, they are lazy furballs. And I think, I don't see any problem. All right. We are 2 minutes past 2. So I'm going to give you guys the new video because it's out. It's public. Here you guys go. Watch that and enjoy. Comment and share and subscribe. And please enjoy your week. And I will see you guys, some of you tomorrow. But in case I don't see you, I'll see you next time.